Anyway, the first remembrance I have was, or one of them anyway, is when Danny was 4 years old, and it kind of revealed his future, I guess, in a way, because it gave us a clue as to what he really wanted to do for his livelihood, and that was his interest in food and cooking. So that didn't come till like midlife for him, but he always cared about it from the time he was a little kid. So when he was real tiny, still in diapers, I used to put him on the kitchen counter while I was cooking, and like every kid, he wanted to lick the beaters and scrape the bowl and whatever. So he got used to watching people cook. And we had an experience that I didn't really ever expect. Ben and I had lucky enough to have Packer tickets to a football game in Milwaukee when they used to play a lot of games there. It happened to be the same weekend that President Kennedy was killed. And at that time, they weren't sure whether they were going to play the game or not. But anyway, we had reservations to go down to Milwaukee overnight. And we went, and just as we were leaving the motel room, Oswald got shot on TV. So it was, kind of a traumatic weekend. Anyway, we went out and partied that night, and when we got home...
And I was probably conceived.
The next day, Mama didn't feel good. and David and Danny didn't have their sisters yet, thank goodness. It were just the two of them. But I could not really get out of bed. So I said to the two boys, do you mind playing real quietly, because Mama wants to stay in bed and watch the funeral procession, because I knew I couldn't move. Well, while I was in bed, all of a sudden, what happens when Danny appears with a little plate with 2 fried eggs. He had just turned 4 years old, and a piece of toast. And I looked at those runny, slimy, sunny-side-up eggs, and it was real hard for me to swallow them, but I did. Anyway, that was the first time we knew he was interested in cooking, and I didn't know how he ever knew how to pull up the chair, turn on the burners, but I think from one of his babysitters who let him do that, that's how he learned. So anyway, that was his first, at the age of 4, learning about cooking. And I sometimes think that people can tell a lot about someone's character, in my head, by the way they treat their parents. And so I have another story about Danny. When I went to work at Western Racket Club, at that time, I think I was probably just turning 40 years old. And Danny thought I needed a little cheering up, so behind my back, he planned a surprise birthday party for me. And I didn't know a thing about it, but my mother-in-law took us out to dinner that night while everybody else sneaked into the house. And the person who let them get in is Mike Miller. And Mike, put out your hand. Okay. Mike lived diagonally opposite on the street from us on our street. And he and Danny had planned it that Mike would go over to our house, open the door, and let all the people in. And also put up whatever food Danny had made that he had been hiding in the bedroom. So when we came home from Ben's mother's house and drove up, at first I didn't see any cars, and then I walked in, I couldn't believe this huge explosion of people. But among them, there were a couple more people who were there that night. And just so you know what a big surprise it was, we weren't really very prepared. I think Danny was asking Grandma, what do we need for alcohol? And she said, I think you're pretty well set up. So anyway, I asked Danny later, what kind of food did you make? I don't remember what you hid. He said, all I can remember making is fudge. And I thought, oh, that's really good for an adult party. But it was after dinner, so what else they nibbled on, I don't know. But he had it all hidden in his room, and I never knew it. Anyway, as the night went on, we thought, well, time now to hope we get ice cubes or something comes up. And I was asking everybody what they wanted to drink, and I had fudge to offer, but it turned out everybody wanted scotch. And that's about the only thing we didn't have in the house. So my good neighbor Pat Jowett, my little English neighbors next door, came to the rescue. And Pat, where are you sitting? Okay.
Yeah, well.
So Pat ran next door and got a bottle of scotch and came through and saved the night. So anyway, it's nice to have her here. Michael's here, and just so you know, that was 45, no, I'm sorry, that made it worse, 35 years ago, and here we all still are. So anyway, I'm so glad to have them here. Oh, and Sue Chapel, sitting in the back, was also there that night. And Sue and Fuzzy Thurston and a few other people. And it was really a wonderful surprise. But that's the kind of a kid Danny was. He was taking care of everybody and just did a super job. So the last thing I wanted to mention was my companion of 37 years, Dick Conrad, knew that I always had wanted to go to Mackinac Island. And this was in the early 80s. And when I was just a teenager, I think, we opened up Life or Look magazine or something that had their first triple fold-out cover, and it was showing the Grand Hotel at Mackinac Island with the biggest porch in the world, and it still is. So I always wanted to go, but I didn't know where it was. So Dick drove me up there for the day, and I ran across and we took the tour and got off the horse-drawn carriage to go and take a look inside, and it turned out it was the hottest day they had ever had on the island, and Dick cannot take any heat. He was just like dying from the heat. And we got off to go over to Mackinac, to the Grand Hotel, and they wouldn't let him in because he had a tank top on. And that wasn't allowed, so I said, if you don't go in, I'm not going to go in. And he said, we didn't come this far for you not to go in, so you go in and take a quick look. So I started in, and he said, and don't buy anything either. And I said, you know, I'm going to the gift shop. He said, if anything's going to come into the house, something else has to go out first. And I thought, yeah, well, that's something to remember, especially for somebody like me. Not a bad philosophy in life. Anyway, while I was in there, I ran to the gift shop real quick, turned a teapot upside down to see what the price was, because usually I would like to bring home a coffee mug or something as a souvenir. And I dropped the teapot, and it was real expensive, but I stuck my foot out and was able to grab it with my two hands, so I didn't have to pay for something I didn't come home with, and I got out of there as fast as I could. Well, I told Danny that story, and I said, here, I almost had to pay for nothing, and I still have no souvenirs from that trip. Well, 2 or 3 years later, my birthday came along, the doorbell rang, opened up this package, and it was a teapot from the Grand Hotel from Mackinac Island and 4 coffee cups, which of course I still have. And some of my girlfriends drank out of those this year and wanted to know where I got them, and I said, you'll hear that story. So now you all know. Anyway, I would like to introduce one other person who's going to speak first, and then Emily's going to sing for us again. And then we're going to ask, Bob's going to come up and ask all those who have something to say if they would take a turn and come tell us true tales. So anyway, cousin Lauren Stone from the Stone side of the family is here somewhere. Will you come up for a minute, Lauren? And just speak, whoever wants to come today, say whatever's in your heart. So thanks, everybody.